Hello, my name is Bobby Ammerman, Extension Associate for the University of Kentucky and the Department of Forestry. I'm the Chain of Custody Administrator for the Center for Forest and Wood Certification, and I just want to thank you for joining me here today. It's a requirement in the FSC program that you conduct and document or do some FSC training, and so this is a good step and will allow us to show evidence that you've done some training during any audits that you might have in the future. So again, thank you for participating, and hopefully we'll make this pretty short. Hoping to get this done in about 45 minutes. As you go through it, there'll be a lot of things. In this particular one, it's more of an overview, and there'll be a lot of things I'll skip over. And I hope that you will. I don't hope. I'm going to be doing some other videos to cover some more of the specific areas within this one. So hopefully you'll watch some of those as well as I get them developed. Yeah, sorry about that. I just completed the video, and I'm sorry, but it took longer than 45 minutes. So it's about an hour and 15 minutes long. So what you can do is, and I strongly recommend you don't watch this all at once. So, but you should be able to stop it, fast forward it, replay it, that kind of thing. So anyway, I wouldn't probably watch more than half of this or listen to more than half of this at a time. Pretty dry stuff. So anyway, just want to give you a heads up. As I said, I just completed this, and it turned out it's a little bit longer than I anticipated. This particular training module is designed for custom woodworkers, and it is titled Custom Woodworker Overview TM003. The TM stands for Training Module, and the 003 just simply means this is the third module that we have put together. Now, who in your organization should watch these videos, or at least this particular video? If you're a COC administrator and you are managing an FSC program for one of our group members that's in the Center for Forest and Wood Certification, certainly we'd want you to watch this video. If you have other folks in your organization that you think that could benefit from this, certainly they could watch it. It's not going to hurt anything for them to watch it. It probably would be a good thing, even if there's a lot of information in here that won't be useful to them. They'll still probably pick up a lot of things that will help them in helping you manage this program if you're a COC administrator. So I thought it'd be a good idea to talk a little bit about what a custom woodworker is. That way, if you don't know and you're debating about which ones of these sets of trainings to use, this definition or this description of what a custom woodworker is hopefully would help you determine which one of these categories that your operation would fall in, and thus again which sets of trainings or which sets of these training modules you would need to review. So we basically have all of our members broken down into 4 categories: custom woodworkers, loggers, traders, and manufacturers. And the reason that we've done this is because each one of these areas has specific things that it needs to do in order to meet the requirements from the COC standard. And so we're trying to put together materials for each of these sets of groups, just to kind of help you through the training and help you through the process. So who is a custom woodworker? Well, a custom woodworker is an operation that is normally the last supplier in the supply chain. Okay, and normally, or in a lot of cases, will install the products that you make. Okay, custom woodworkers also will sell most of their FSC products to contractors who are working on LEED certified projects. Okay, So if you're one of those guys, then you very likely fall into this category. If you do not create an invoice that lists each product item that you manufacture, okay, then you're probably a custom woodworker. So invoices that basically just will charge for the amount of work that you've gotten done on a particular project at a given point in time. Invoices that just have a value, a dollar value on them, and a short description, something like, okay, this is mill work for, whatever job it might be, in a dollar amount, then you're likely a custom woodworker. Okay. Now I think loggers are self-explanatory. Traders are kind of self-explanatory. A lot of times the traders, they don't even take possession of materials, so they're basically brokering materials, and so there's a different set of requirements for them guys. And then manufacturers is basically everybody else that don't fall into one of these three other categories. Now there are many different certification schemes. There on the right, you can see um, several of them, SFI, or at least the logos for several of them. SFI, American Tree Farm, FSC, and then some of those others are from around the world or other places here in North America. All these certification schemes really identify themselves with acronyms, so it really becomes a difficult thing to digest in terms of how these acronyms are thrown around out there. ATF, FSC, PFC, CSA, it's kind of like alphabet soup, and it's really hard to keep track of which acronym goes with which certification scheme and all that, and really just adds to the complexity of it. But my hope is, as we go along here, I'll provide you a little bit better understanding the difference between the other ones, and kind of why we're using FSC or why you're using FSC, that kind of thing. So to start, let's talk about a little bit of history. Basically, certification came about because back in the 80s and early 90s, there was a large movement by the environmental groups to try to convince large box stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, and even some larger office supply stores like Office Depot and some of those folks to try to change their buying practices, to try to get them to quit buying wood that that originated, I should say, in the tropical rainforest regions. I remember growing up in the 80s, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of talk about the destruction of a rainforest, and so around the world, destruction of rainforests around the world. And so these environmental groups kind of seized on that and would protest in front of these large box stores like Home Depot. So eventually Home Depot just said, well, it's really uncomfortable for our customers to come in and buy wood products with these protesters out front. So we'll just have a company policy that basically says we just won't buy from those regions anymore. We'll make sure we understand where our supply chain's coming from, and we'll just refuse to buy from those areas. And so basically that kind of backfired on the environmental groups, because now you had these regions around the world, these rainforest regions that had the local citizenry there. They had built their life around the sale of timber and the harvesting operations that occurred as a result, and so they basically had no income after we quit buying wood from those areas. And so what the end up happening is that they couldn't make a living, so they really just started clear cutting all those areas and using it for farmland, because they had to survive. They had to find something to make some money and to live on, and that's what they kind of turned to. So it sort of backfired a little bit on the environmentalists. Didn't work out exactly like they planned, and so that's kind of how we got the certification. Now there are many certification schemes out there related to other products other than wood products. Underwriters Laboratory, the little UL symbol that you see on a lot of electrical appliances that you buy and that kind of thing. And you know, I think a lot of us probably look for that, want to make sure that it's that appliance has been approved by the underwriters laboratory, so we know it's safe when we put it in our house. Same thing when we go buy beef. We want to know what grade of beef is it. Is it good quality beef, that kind of thing. So USDA Prime is another example of a certification. As well as the Motion Picture Association. They put out these ratings on their movies. I think almost all of us are familiar with that. So when we see a PG-13 rating, we have a pretty good idea what that means about the movie and what we're going to see. So when Home Depot and some of these other large stores, other large box stores, when they decided, okay, we're going to quit buying from those regions, and the local people started clear cutting those areas and converting them to agriculture, to farmland. The environmental groups realized, okay, well, this is not working the way we really wanted it to. So what they did was that's where these certification schemes come from, is they were trying to figure out a way that the local people could still sell some wood, some timber, still make a living from the forest, if you will, and do it in a way that's sustainable. Okay, and so that's what these schemes were designed to do, was to allow for some harvest to take place, but to be done in a way that was sustainable and would maintain the health of the forest. And so that's how we got to these certification schemes. Now it all kind of got started in the 90s in terms of the development of certification. It was pushed forward by NGOs, non-government organizations, environmental organizations, as well as the forest products industry. 1993, FSC developed the first certification scheme, and FSC was made up, and still is today, of equal parts of environmental, social, and economic chambers. And when it originally was put together, there was very little industry involved. Now that's changed a little bit over time. We have many more industry members now that's in the economic chamber. But when it first originated, there was very little industry involved with FSC. Now, in response to FSC, in 1995, Sustainable Forestry Initiative was formed, and that was formed by the American Forest and Paper Association, AF&PA, and basically they were trying to develop a certification scheme primarily for the United States that could oppose FSC, and at the same time oppose them in a way where there was much more industry involvement, so there was more industry friendly, if you will. I don't want to use the word easier to achieve certification, but definitely maybe easier for us here in the U.S. to get our land certified to SFI versus FSC, just because the standard was designed specifically for the U.S. And then before 1995 and 1993, Canadian Standards Association actually developed their own scheme in Canada, which is very similar to the SFI scheme. And then in 1999, the Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification, PEFC, was developed. And I'll get into that in a little bit, what PEFC is and what that means. And then, of course, since 1941, the old American Tree Farm system has always been there. The problem with American Tree Farm up until recently was that you could certify the timber, but there was no mechanism for bringing that timber from the forest to the market, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in a minute as well. Today, there are more than 50 certification schemes across the world, or around the world. So PEFC is much like FSC in the case that it is recognized around the world, SFI, Sustainable Forestry Initiative, is not necessarily accepted in other places other than the U.S. And so what PEFC has done is they have created a worldwide label, and they will accept these other groups into these other schemes, if you will, into their system. They will endorse them. So, like for Sustainable Forestry Initiative, the only way that you really can sell SFI material around the world is through the endorsement that PEFC has given SFI. And so we can actually have timber here growing in the U.S. that's an SFI certified timberland, and through the PEFC endorsement, that material can be sold around the world as PEFC. So SFI is one certification scheme here in the U.S. that PEFC has endorsed. They've also now endorsed the American Tree Farm, and so now American Tree Farm has a mechanism for their timber to be harvested and then marketed, not only just in the U.S. but now around the world. So now they have the ability to do that because of the endorsement from PEFC. Now, this FSC is a scheme that you can have an FSC forest right here in the U.S., harvest that timber, turn it into product, and then sell that product under the FSC label anywhere around the world. And so that's the difference between FSC is that FSC doesn't recognize any other certification schemes other than their own. So if it doesn't start as an FSC forest, there's no way that their label can be put on any wood product that's sold anywhere. So that's the big difference between the PEFC and the FSC. PEFC basically is an endorsement of other schemes, and FSC has their own complete program from beginning to end, and they do not accept any other schemes into their system. So if you want to sell a product with an FSC claim or an FSC label on it, it has to start as FSC in the very beginning. So where do we stand with certification today? Really, FSC is the big driver in terms of demand and being able to get more for the material. FSC really is the gold standard, if you will. We see demand coming out of Europe for FSC material, more so on the western side of Europe. The eastern side seems to be more, or I got that backwards. The western side is more PEFC, and the eastern side is more FSC in East Europe. And we see here in the U.S., we see programs, lead programs or lead buildings. Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design is what LEED stands for, and LEED will only accept FSC wood into those LEED certified buildings if the contractor, if the builder is trying to use the wood products credit in the development of the program for the building. So it really it's only worth 1 point. So really, it doesn't. A lot of these contractors will find other ways to get those points. But if the contractor needs that 1 point, that 1 credit from the wood products, then it has to be FSC. LEED does not accept any other scheme at the present. Now there is a pilot project with SFI, but it, to my knowledge, my understanding, it really hasn't taken off. It hasn't been well accepted by the architects and contractors around the country. So at this point, it's still really FSC, even though there's been some push to allow another scheme into the program. And the bigger driver for FSC is the pulp and paper industry, and that's really the folks that are really pushing for more FSC wood going into their paper products. And it's probably why you're watching this video right now, is because you're probably sending pulpwood into a chip mill or into a paper plant, and they're needing the FSC credits. So again, that's probably why you're watching this video. There are two stages or types to certification. So there's forest management certification. It's a process determining if the forest operations meet predetermined environmental, economic, and social standards, and where an independent auditing body conducts an inspection and awards a certificate pending conformance to standards developed by a specific certification body. And then the other side to it, or the second part to it, is the chain of custody, and that's to provide clear separation and demarcation of certified and uncertified forest products at all stages, including forest sites, processing, shipping, manufacturing, and wholesale and distribution stages. Okay, so the big difference between the two stages here, or two types, is you can't have certified material moving through an FSC chain of custody program if it didn't start as FSC certified timberland. Okay, so you have to have the forest management certification in place in order for you as a logger to be able to sell logs that you are harvesting as FSC certified. So it's got to be, this forest itself has to be certified first, and then as you purchase the timber, and then sell the logs, you can market the logs that you sell as FSC certified as long as it originated at a forest that was FSC certified. Or I should say is FSC certified, because you don't really lose a certification if you harvest. They have to keep that in place. Now, an example of what we're talking about with this chain of custody process, you start with a certified forest, and as it moves from that forest to the logger, and then onto the chip mill, and then onto the paper mill, and even in some cases to the retailer, each one of those ownerships of that forest product has to be FSC certified in order for the final product that is created to carry an FSC label or claim. Okay, and we can see down at the bottom here, that cup, the only way that that cup can carry that label is if all those owners of that material in the process was FSC certified, and the wood from the beginning was FSC certified to start with. Otherwise, that cup cannot carry that FSC claim or label. Now, if you're not in a group, if you're getting a certificate on your own and you're going directly to the certification body, basically certification bodies, they're folks that just basically provide the certification. FSC does not provide that directly. They don't have a mechanism in place to provide that. And so what they do is they basically sub that out to these certification bodies then to provide the certification to industries. Okay. And they have the certification bodies, they have requirements they have to meet, maintain. They get audited annually themselves, and so if all that is good, then FSC will sign off on them being able to provide these individual certificates to each one of the companies or industries. Now, there is one exception to that. Again, I've brought this up before. It's this group certification process. In order to be in a group, you have to be less than $5 million in annual revenue. And I will ask you, probably every March, we'll send out a total revenue form that we'll ask you to fill out. And basically, that's the process by which we'll go through to document that you are actually under the $5 million in annual revenue. So we'll ask for that annually. Usually, like I said, it goes out in March. So say this year, March 2019, we'll be looking for what your annual revenue was for 2018. Okay. And when we say revenue, we're talking about all wood sales. Okay. Now, if you get paid for some excavating work, or you get paid for hauling some logs somewhere that's separate from your business or whatever, that's not part of what you normally do, then that can be discounted potentially. So we're only talking about wood sales and not anything else. So not excavating, not getting paid for trucking, that kind of thing. Now the way these groups work is if you're in a group, basically you share a certificate with all those that are listed on the that's listed in the group or as part of the group. And so you as a logger, once you um, pass all of the requirements of certification, we accept you into the group, then your name will be listed on our certificates. So when you go to the FSC's website, you're really looking for the Center for Forest and Wood Certification's chain of custody certificate, and then under that certificate, your name, your company name will be listed within that certificate. Okay, and the big thing here in understanding is that if you have an individual certificate, you're going to get audited annually by the certification body. Okay, if you're in a group, you won't get audited annually every year by the certification body. There's a subset of the members that the certification body will choose to audit every year. Basically, audits just to make sure that everything is in place, that you're doing things correctly, and you're not cheating the system or trying to cheat the system, that kind of thing. So that's what those audits are about. Now, normally, when if you're not selected, you're still audited annually, and that's done as an internal audit. That'd be probably done by me or somebody within the Center for Forest and Wood Certification that has qualifications to provide or to do that audit. And in that case, you'll basically be audited by a familiar face or a friendly face, if you will. But again, there will be a certain percentage of the group members that get selected for this audit process every year. And it could be that, well, it probably will be that, if you get audited this year, you probably externally, again, you probably won't get audited next year externally. Probably would be an internal audit then. And we still, on the internal audits, we're still looking for the same kind of things. We're still trying to determine if you're doing things the right way, that kind of thing. But it's a little more relaxed environment. And of course, a lot of you probably already will know me. So we'll be able to, to work a little bit one-on-one more so than this external process. So it can be a little bit more anxious, if you will, going through the external versus the internal. Now, the standard you'll be certified against is FSC Standard 40-004 version 3. That is the chain of custody standard. And unless you're trying to move FSC controlled wood, and if you are, then you probably not. I'm probably dealing with you differently, and you might watch this video, but we probably be asking you to do a lot more, so you'll be fully aware you're moving controlled wood if that would be the case. So probably for you, this is the only standard that you'll be audited against and that you're certified to. So basic requirements of becoming certified is first you got to have a set of written procedures. You have to conduct some FSC training and document that you did that, and then you have to pass an audit. Okay, so this is, in your situation, this is going to be an internal audit. That internal audits happen all the first year when you first get signed up for the group. Now again, when the audit rolls around at the beginning of the year, our audits usually run from January to March, something like that. So when these audits roll around in the future during that time frame, you could be asked to be part of an external audit process. But initially, these are all done with these internal audits that either myself would be doing, and at this point I've done all the internal auditing, or someone that we've appointed from within the Center for Forest Wood Certification that's qualified to do. Now, I will, at this point, it may not be clear to you, or it might be, your written procedures, I'll draft those for you. So you won't have to do those yourself. I will at some point, we'll have a conversation on the phone. That may have already taken place. I'll gather some information from you, and I'll draft those procedures for you. And then when I get those procedures drafted, I'll give you a copy of them. And from those procedures, then you'll have to conduct your training. Okay. and document that you did that. And I'll show you later on in the video how you can go about documenting that you did the training. And so one of the things you can do is actually watch this video, or you might have some of your folks that work for you watch this too. And then we'll have some other smaller videos that will be more specific to some of the guys that might be working for you. In other words, how do you handle low tickets and that kind of thing. So we'll have training modules just for that, and get into more detail about how to do those things. And then again, you have to pass the internal audit, which may require some corrective measures if there's something missing, or you don't have all the things in place that you need. So I want to talk a little bit about claims. There are 4 basic claims that FSC uses to transfer FSC products from one supplier to the next in the supply chain. And those 4 basic claims are FSC 100%, FSC mixed credit, FSC mixed percent, and FSC controlled wood. Now, there are 2 others, a reclaimed and recycled claim, that I won't talk about right now. If you have a need for either one of those claims, just get in contact with me directly, and we can discuss those. But for this training, I'm not going to get into either one of those. I'm just going to focus on the 4 major claims that you're most likely to come in contact with and to use. So it's kind of a myth. A lot of folks think that in order for you to pass your certified FSC certified product down to your customer, that you do that by labeling the product itself, and that's simply not how the process works. You basically transfer the FSC product from you to your customer through your invoicing, and by giving a description or providing a description on your invoice of what the certified claim is for the product. Okay, and so that would basically be one of these 4 claims that we just discussed. Now, what does each one of them mean? So let's start with FSC 100%. If you come in contact with that claim, then what that tells you is that the product that you've purchased, all of the fiber or content in that product came directly from an FSC certified forest. Okay. Now, if it's mixed credit, it means something other than all that fiber content came directly from a certified forest. Now, 100% of the content or the fiber is FSC. Okay, so you can still claim 100% of it as being FSC, but because it says mixed credit, then that tells you that material may have came from another source, or portions of that material may have came from another source. Okay. Now, the material that whatever volume that you've purchased, like I said, 100% of it is FSC, and you know that volume, okay, was purchased at some point in the supply chain. Okay, so the best way to explain that is to use an example. So I'm going to use an example of a sawmill. Sawmills are the most likely candidate for using mixed credit claim. Okay, and so what a sawmill will do is they're of course they're buying up front. They're buying FSC 100% logs, and they're bringing them into their log yard, and they're mixing those with non-certified logs. They're not keeping them separated on the log yard, and a big part of the reason is most mills do not have the space to do that. So FSC realized that early on, that if sawmills is going to get involved in this process, they're going to have to make it feasible for them to be able to store and manage their FSC inventory. Okay, And so what they allow the mill to do then is to mix those logs. They mix them certified logs with non-certified logs. Okay, and then on the output side, on their invoicing, when they pass that claim about the product, in terms of it being FSC, when they pass that claim on to their customer, they then note on the invoice that this is not FSC 100% anymore. This is now FSC mixed credit, because the mill cannot guarantee you that the fiber, the content that you're buying, came directly from a certified forest. Okay, because they mixed it up front with from non-certified sources. Okay. Now, what the mill will do is they keep a credit account, a spreadsheet of FSC 100% logs that they purchase. So a load of logs come in that are FSC. They will record that in their spreadsheet. Okay, and then they get a customer that says, okay, well, I want some FSC lumber. Then they go back to their credit account, to their spreadsheet, and look to see if they've made enough FSC 100% purchases to sell them the volume at which they're looking for in terms of it being FSC. Okay, and when they buy those logs, they come in, they put that volume into the spreadsheet or credit account. That credit account calculates of the logs what grade of material is going to come out of those logs. Okay, and then it's actually that area, that amount of a particular grade that from that original purchase of those logs that the mill can then sell as FSC mixed credit. Okay, so in other words, they can't buy a load of logs, FSC logs, and sell 100% of that volume as FAS, for example, on the output side of lumber. They can't do that, so they have to break out the exact amount that would go to that category. There is one caveat, however, for the sawmill, and with the wood that is non-certified, where they're mixing the logs, those logs, they have to meet a set of criteria that FSC has established for non-certified sources that are mixed with certified sources, and those requirements are that the wood cannot be illegally logged or harvested, that during the harvest operation the harvest cannot violate traditional human rights or the destruction of high conservation value forest, or can it cause significant conversion from forest to other uses, nor can it be genetically modified, or can it violate any of the ILO core conventions as defined in the ILO Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights to Work. So it can't just be any wood. It has to meet, again, these sets of criteria. And if the sawmill can prove that those non-certified sources do meet those standards, those requirements, then it can be mixed with certified sources. Okay, and then the output be an FSC mixed credit claim. All right. Now for the mixed percent, basically that claim just states the amount of content that's in that product that is certified and the amount that isn't. But just like with the mixed credit, that portion that's not certified, it still has to meet those criteria. Okay. Now for the last claim, the FSC controlled wood. Now for that claim, that's basically the material it's basically for material that is not FSC certified, but that meets these sets of criteria. Okay, in other words, can't be stolen, can't violate traditional human rights during the harvest operation, nor can harvest operation be destructive of high conservation value forest. Significant conversion cannot occur, nor can it be genetically modified, and then it cannot violate the ILO core conventions as well. So if that material meets that set of criteria, then it can be considered FSC control wood. Of course, it has to be documented and proved that it does meet those requirements. and then that mill can pass that lumber that it produces on as FSC controlled wood if it has some reason to. Okay, now I will point out one thing. In order to use an FSC claim, in order to pass it on to a supplier as FSC controlled wood, that supplier has to be chain of custody certified, or that mill or whatever entity it might be that's trying to make or trying to establish and sell an FSC controlled wood claim. They can only do that, and they can only sell that material as such to other certified organizations. Okay. Now I'll get into it in a little bit later on exactly what invoices look like. Okay, we'll do that with a supplemental training module, and I'll describe to you in that training module exactly how these claims look on invoicing and things like that. Okay. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about suppliers list, and this is a requirement in the COC standard. And basically, the requirement is that you have to keep a list of all of your FSC suppliers. Okay. Now I'll have this written in your procedures. Okay, that I will provide you pretty early on in the process, probably before you're certified. If not, then shortly after. But in those procedures will be your suppliers list. Okay. Now you need to make sure that when you go to purchase FSC products or materials, that the suppliers that you buy from are listed on this suppliers list. Okay. And again, this list will be in your procedures, and it's a table, so you can just simply add rows to that table if you need to add more suppliers. But again, the main thing is to make sure that you have added suppliers to the suppliers list. Okay. So you'll need things like the name of the supplier, their FSC COC code. It could be that you might need their controlled wood number. Those are two separate numbers, but unlikely for most of you that'll be a concern. You'll have to also list the type of material that you're buying from them. And I like to have the exact product code of the material that you're buying. That should match your product group schedule. That's also in your procedures, and I'll touch on that here in a few minutes. But again, I like to use those codes and keep them the same throughout the process. And if any of this, if you have to add suppliers and any of this is confusing to you, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact me. It's a lot easier to get this stuff correct up front than it is later. And you also need to list the claims for those products you're purchasing that supplier is listed on the FSC website as being able to supply to you. Now we'll get into supplier verification a little bit later, and again I'll have a little training module put together just for supplier verification. Okay, and I'll talk a little bit about that, a little bit more detail here in a minute as well. But the main thing is that you have to have any supplier that you purchase from, any FSC supplier that you purchase from, has to be on this FSC suppliers list, and you also have to keep it updated or verified. These suppliers have to be verified every so often. And I'll get into a little bit more detail about how often that happens and how you do that later. Okay, so let's talk about supplier verification. Okay, so the following on this slide here, the following must be verified by using FSC's website, www.info.fsc.org. By the way, this link will be listed in your procedures. So if you need to know where you can find this website, simply go to your procedures, and it'll be listed in your procedures under supplier verification. So verification should be done at the minimum of once a year before each internal or external audit. Now that's the minimum, and I really would require you do this more often than once a year. I'd like to see it done maybe quarterly. If you just purchase materials every so often, you don't have a lot of FSC certified sales, then I really would strongly recommend that you do it probably before you purchase FSC products, probably every time. Okay. Now the things, once you get to the website, here's a list of things that you need to verify. You need to verify that the COC code or number matches with numbers that you're going to get from them on their invoicing, as well as match the numbers that you have listed for them on your suppliers list. So if either one of those things is incorrect, then you need to address that, because you got a problem that's happened somewhere. So first thing to do is verify that those numbers are correct, that they match what's in your suppliers list. And then once you get the invoice from your supplier, you want to compare that, compare the number that was provided on the invoice from them to the code that you have listed on your suppliers list. Okay. And then while you're at the website, make sure their status says valid. And the expiry date, you want to verify that. Make sure that's not like right around the corner. That it's out in the future somewhat, because if it's going to expire next month, then obviously you'd want to come back and check it next month to make sure that they passed their audit and that their certificate is still good for another 5 years or whatever it might be. You also want to verify that the product types that are listed on the FSC website for that supplier matches what you have in your products table. Okay, and that products table is probably on page 3 or 4 of your procedures. It depends on how large your procedures are and what you do as to exactly where to be located on the procedures. But you want to verify that does match your table, your products table. And then the species, this is also something else you want to check. You want to make sure that the species that is listed on the website that they can sell for those products are actually the species that you have identified on your products table, okay, in your procedures. And point out one other thing. So I'll have a short video later that will just deal with supplier verification, okay? And I'll show you, I'll pull up the website, show you exactly what you need to be looking for, as well as how to compare it to your products group schedule or table in your procedures. So I thought while I was at it here, I'd just show you what the website looks like when you go to verify a supplier. Just thought I'd do that real quick. So this is just a picture of what it looks like. Actually, this is our certificate, the Center for Forest Wood Certification. So once you get to the search page on FSC's website and you find the certificate that you're looking for, or the COC supplier that you're looking for, then and you pull their information up, this is what it would look like. Okay, so you can see here at the top there, it lists their certificate code. It lists the name of the certificate that's on the certificate there and their main address, and then under certificate data there, that shows the status value and the expiry date. And then if you scroll on down through the website, it gets into the it'll get into the individual products and species that that particular supplier can sell to you. So again, I'll get into a little bit more detail about this with another training video that'll be dedicated just for supplier verification. Okay, so I want to talk about outgoing invoices. I'm probably not going to show anything or talk about incoming invoices. Again, I'm going to do a little short PowerPoint voiceover to discuss those inputs, incoming invoices, if you will. But for you guys that are doing custom woodworking, the way that you invoice is different than anybody else. So I want to bring that up and and show a little bit about that, what those invoices look like, and just touch on those a little bit. So right here, this is a job that that was done, and this is kind of sort of made up. But this is a job that had 3 outgoing invoices. They were first invoiced for 33%. They were invoiced again for 33% more of the job, or 66% of the job, and they were finally invoiced for the remaining 33 or 34%, and the total 100%. So when that last invoice went out, there also was a final document that described all the wood that was used. Okay. And this sheet that you see on here to the left, this environmental materials reporting form, is actually a form provided by the lead contractor, and needed this filled out by the custom woodworker. Okay, and so it basically lists all of the products that were purchased that were used to make the products for that job, and it lists them by value, purchase value. And then also it described how much of that wood or content was actually FSC wood, FSC certified wood, and it also included a claim, okay, as well as the COC number for the custom woodworker. And then this final document also has to describe, or at least show a connection to all the invoices that were issued for this project proceeding. So I'm going to pull this final document up in a few slides so we can see it a little bit better. But I just kind of wanted to give you an overview in this slide what we're looking at. So we're looking at 3 different invoices sent at 3 different times, all for the same project. And this also includes a final document that is required on these lead certified jobs when you issue FSC claims for them. Okay, so this is the first invoice of those 3 that I just showed you on the previous slide. So this invoice is invoice number 6347, and the date is 2/21/2018. What's included on this is a description. It says 33% of the work completed for the road seal project at a unit price of $3,000. Okay, so there's no description about products. There's none of that. Just here's a charge. We have this much of the job completed, and it's due upon receipt. Okay, it's the only thing this is saying. Each one of these invoices, though, that were, and I call these draft invoices. I don't think that's really the right terminology, but these invoices where you're collecting payment as the project progresses. What has to be on each one of these invoices is your COC, or chain of custody number. So you can see that number is right there, just on the right hand side toward the center of the invoice, NP-0 or NP-COC-007-619-AA. So your COC number needs to be on each one of these invoices. So I'm getting ready. I'll show you the second invoice here in line. Okay, so here's the second invoice. You can see the invoice number is 6369, and the date of it is 3/21/2018. Again, it contains the COC number, and it states that now 66% of the work has been completed, and here's an additional charge of another $3,000. Okay, and finally, here's the last invoice of that group. So it's invoice number 6381, and the date is 4/21/2018. And we've noted in the description that now 100% of the work for this project has been completed, and this is the remaining charge for the project. And again, it includes the COC number for the group member, and that's really important. So you got to have on each one of these invoices, you have to have the COC number, and you also have to have an invoice number or some way of identifying this invoice to the project, okay, or to that final document. And I'm getting ready to show you that final document here on the next slide. Okay, so here's this final document, and so all the stuff I've handwritten in, is what's important here to make sure is included on this last document that's provided to the contractor for this LEED certified or FSC project. Okay, and now the only thing on here that's not required is the vendor or manufacturer. You don't really have to put that on there. I just went ahead and wrote DSI in there, but really that's not required in terms of FSC's requirement. Okay, but everything else is required. And there is one item that is sort of missing on this document that FSC likes to see, and that's the quantity. Like for example, where it says 3/4 inch millimeter, and there is a value, money value for what that material costs. They do like to see a quantity, so like number of sheets or number of square foot or something like that. However, this LEED document is actually provided by the contractor, so there's really not a space for quantity in there. So if you can get it in there, it's great. You can write it anywhere, put it on the side of it, or put it in another column or whatever. It doesn't really matter. If you can get in there, that would kind of tie a bow around this document. But if you can't, it's okay. I think I've got an agreement from NEPCON to allow the value, the dollar value, to equate for the quantity. Okay, because it is a type of quantity. It's just not exactly the quantity that they're kind of looking for, but they understand this is a form provided by LEED, and it's difficult to change it and get everybody to understand that, hey, we need to add quantity on there. But all the things that I have penciled in here is very important. So the project has to have a name. Okay, so this one is a Pro Seal project, and you also have to list all the associated invoices that is associated with this final document. Okay, so those 3 invoices that were sent initially before this final document went to the contractor, those need to be identified on this form. All right, and it's probably a good idea to send this final document along with that last invoice too. So that invoice 6381, when it went out, it probably should have had this document or a copy of this document with it to the contractor. Okay. This document is exactly how you pass the FSC claim on to your customer. Okay, and this is the only way really that you pass that claim on to your customer or onto the LEED certified contractor. And so the reason the value is important of the input material that you bought, the reason that's important is because the contractor is going to use that to calculate and to make a determination how much of the material you buy and use for that project that he can then use toward his wood credit for LEED. Okay, so he has to have a value of at least 50% on all the wood going into the project before he can get that one wood credit toward his project. So that's why he has to have this information. So you can see on here the 3/4 inch millimeter. Under certified wood, we've noted, okay, 100% of that is certified. We've noted that 100% of the 1/2 inch millimeter is certified. And we've noted that 100% of the 3/4 inch particle board is certified. But we also said that 0% or no certified wood was in the plywood. Okay, so he can use the values of all the millimeter in the particle board, but he can't use the value for the plywood. Okay, so that's going to be a negative to him. Now, when you look at the math here, you can quickly tell that there's more than 50% by value that was certified in this job. So he'll be able to get his credit if this is the only wood component or only set of wood components that he had going into the project. Now, you also have to put the claim on this document too for each one of those product items. So you can see under FSC tracking, under that column that we've included the claim, FSC mix for both millimeter and FSC mix for the particle board, and then we've simply put not applicable for the plywood, indicating that it is not a certified item. Okay. And also, don't forget, you got to have the COC number on there. The member COC number has to be on this document, and you can see under FSC tracking COC number, we included it right there. So So anyway, everything that's on this final document here in front of you, that is the minimum that you have to have on these lead documents. There are other documents that are required other than load tickets and contracts, and I'll just cover those here fairly briefly. A lot of these are documents or what may be required inside your written procedures that you want to give too much thought to, but I do want to go over them real briefly, so at least you're aware of them. Okay, so this is the first one I want to cover, and it is called Products Group Schedule. This will, when we set your procedures up initially, this will already be included in your procedures. When I draft them, I will frame this and put the proper group schedule or group table in your procedures for you. So really, this is not something you should really have to ever worry about. However, I will point out if you start making or selling products that are different than what you were making when we first signed you up to be in the group, then you probably need to get hold to me, and we need to update this products group schedule so that it shows the change in the products that you're making. You have to sign a declaration of commitment to FSC values. So that's what this is. So in order for you to get in a group and be initially accepted, you have to be willing to date and sign this. Okay. And by the way, I will provide these to you, a blank copy, and just it'll look just like this is here, but I'll provide it to you so you don't have to worry about getting a copy of it to date and sign. So this is called a material counting record, and you will be asked to produce these annually, both for internal audits and for external audits. And you can see here what's going to be required. So you have an input side here and an output side. So the input side will you'll need to list every product that you bought that was FSC, okay, during the period of time that you're establishing this material accounting record for, and you can, if you bought multiple products of the same item. In other words, if you bought say this 4x8 white melamine here, if you bought that multiple times, then you don't have to list it every time you bought it. You just have to list that product once, but you need to include the total quantity of all those items that you bought, and you would need to list in this in the cell over here that's associated with that product description. You need to list every invoice that was used to purchase that item. Okay. So again, just go through here, list every product item that you purchased, the total quantity that you purchased of that item, and then all the invoice numbers associated with each one needs to be included as well. Okay. And then on your outputs, it'd be the same thing. So you have to be able to identify the project. Okay. So we said earlier that we call this project Rose Hill Project. So you, every time that there's an output invoice related to that Rose Hill project, then you need to create that. Well, for each product that was sold, you would create that and associate it to that project. Okay, so you can see here you'd have to list the quantity, unit of measurement, give it a product description, and then also include the claim, and you also need to include the claim on the input side as well. Now, since you're a custom woodworker, the inputs and the outputs will match exactly. The only difference will be the invoice and the project name. Okay, that'll only be the difference. So your total quantities here on both sides should always equal. Okay, this document here is called a volume summary, and this is something that you will have to produce annually, and produce it before each audit, whether that be internal audit or an external audit. Now I will normally I try to help the members generate this the first time, so it's possible that I could get totals from you and fill in the blanks here myself, and then provide this as kind of a finished product, so you can see how to do it the first time. But then after that, I would hope that each, or my hope is that each member in our group will be able to do this on their own without too much help from me, at least after the first one. So what is included here, and by the way, I will give you this template. So the only thing you really would be doing is filling in the blanks. So for each product type you purchased, that goes on the input side of this template. So you'd put a product type, and we get that product type right off of your product group schedule in your written procedures. And then you have to put what claims of that product that were purchased during that period of time that this volume summary represents, and then the total input, okay, that was purchased, the inputs that was still in stock from the previous year that would go in this in that section there, or in that cell there, and then any inputs that was used for production, um, and in this case we used every bit of what we bought, so that number would be the same. But it could be that maybe you only used a portion of what you bought, so that's the amount that you put in there. Okay. And then for the outputs, it's real similar. You describe the outputs by product type. So whatever product type you're selling your products from, then you put that product type, and again, you can get that off of your out of your written procedures, off your product group schedule, and we're able to get you have to list all the FSC claims for the products that was sold, and as well as the total quantities for those. Okay, and then if you have any finished product that's still in inventory, then that's what goes in that final cell there, output still in stock. So again, I'll try to help you with the first round of this, and really it's not that complicated. I think after you do one of them, or you're helped through doing one of them, then really I think it's no big deal. But it is something you have to do annually. Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention that I want to point out is the only materials that go on this document, the volume summary, or that you have to keep track of in your material counting records, are your FSC certified materials. That's the only thing that's going in these documents. So if you only do 1 or 2 jobs a year, this gets really, really, really simple. So anyway, I hadn't mentioned that, and I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so here is a few additional items that I need to address before we close on this training module. So the first thing is, if you want to use logos or use any of the trademarks for FSC, you have to seek approval for those. You get that approval through me, and so FSC is trademarked, Forest Stewardship Council is trademarked, as well as their little logo. So any use of any of those on any type of advertisement or publications, they need to have approval first. So just remember that if you want to put it on your website, on a business card, something like that, get a hold of me and let me help you walk you through that. Okay. Secondly, in your procedures, we will need to have, if you're just getting in the group here, if this is your initial training, you're just getting in the group, one of the things we'll have to do is mock up some delivery tickets and invoices. Okay. Now, if you're a custom woodworker, don't worry about it. You probably won't have to do delivery tickets, depending on your situation, unless it's unique or something. But we will need to mock up some invoices. And if you've already done some invoices, if you've been certified for a while or whatever, then unless we want to put some that you've already used in your procedures. Okay, so mainly to give you a point of reference, but also to show the auditors that you kind of know what you're doing and that kind of thing. So, all right, next. You have to appoint, again, if you're coming into this new, there has to be somebody in your organization that's appointed for a safety program, and it will be required to it normally is required to show some sort of safety program. Anything that you're doing safety related where you have people come to a meeting or a training and they sign a document, that's the kind of thing that we want to see. Okay, so be prepared for that. Be prepared that you have to appoint somebody being responsible for a safety program. And that same thing goes for your COC program too. You have to appoint somebody in your organization to be the point of contact and be responsible for the program. Okay, and again, if you're new to this, if this is your initial training in FSC, then that person will be pointed to many times in the written procedures as being the person responsible for a lot of things. So so it's, you got to do that. You can't be certified and not have somebody that you've appointed to be in charge of the program. Okay. And then complaint mechanisms, we'll have that written in your procedures. The main thing is not that you're you know what, if you get a complaint that you know verbatimly what to do. You have that memorized. You don't have to do that, but you do have to be prepared to answer a question during an audit, is that you know what to do if something comes up. So, and what you do, the first thing you're gonna do is get a hold of me. That's the first thing. Okay, and then you'll want to say, well, it's in my written procedures. I would refer to them, and then follow whatever it says to do. I know one of the first things I got to do is get a hold of Bobby. So, so as long as you say that, that'll be fine. We actually have another little video that I'll ask you to watch, and it's related. It's got part of it is about complaint mechanisms, and also if you send out a product that you claim was certified and end up not being non-conforming products, there's a process that's very similar to the complaint mechanism that you have to go through. So, so anyway, I'll be asking you to watch that, and those are sort of changes that's been added to when the new version came out a couple of years ago. And then finally, very important, I guarantee you'll be asked this during an audit: how long do you keep your records that are related to your COC program? We definitely want to say a minimum of 5 years. Okay, you can say, oh, we never throw anything away, but we know the standard says we have to keep them for 5 years. That's the perfect answer. Okay. All right, so that just about wraps it up. I got one more slide, I think, and we'll be done. Okay, so the last thing here, now that you've completed the training, you've done the training, now it's extremely important that we get that documented. So when you're audited, you can show evidence to the auditor that, hey, we have been doing training. I've been trained myself, and I use these training modules, programs that Bobby's put up online. I've been using those, and then I've also done some training of my own with some of my folks out here in the shop, and I've even had some of them maybe watch some of these trainings. Okay. Now, if when you watch one of these, or even if one of your employees or somebody else in your organization watches these trainings, make sure that everyone completes this training registration sheet. Okay. Now, at some point, I'll be giving you a 3-ring binder that will have your written procedures in it, the center's written procedures. Okay, and then a copy of the standard FSC, the FSC Chain of Custody Standard 40-004 version 3. So you'll get a copy of all 3 of those in this binder. In your written procedures in that binder, it should be attachment A. It could be another attachment. It depends on your situation. Normally, I put it as attachment A, is where you'll find this training registration sheet. So get that out of the notebook and date it. All right, and sign it. You can list me as an instructor, if you've watched, once you've completed this video, if you do some training on your own with your employees, then you can be the instructor, but make sure they sign it. And in the CP there, the CCP, that stands for Critical Control Point, by the way, area of training, under that put Custom Woodworker Overview TM003. That way when an auditor sees that, they'll know you watched this video. All right. Okay, thank you. And again, I'm Bobby Ammerman. Here's my contact information. My email there is at the bottom, BAMMERMA@uky.edu. And my cell number is 606-424-9981. Now that is my personal cell number, but please, if you need to get a hold of me, sometimes I'm hard to get a hold of in the office. Don't hesitate to call that number. Be glad to talk to you. And really, we really would prefer solving issues before they occur than after the fact. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you got a question or whatever it might be. All right, thank you very much, and look forward to the next one.